you're in another country, you're not going to get like persecuted for it, right? Like you can just kind of like see what you can pull. Hey, I just hacked into Indiana hospital and have all their records now, and they have to pay me a Bitcoins, or I'm going to release it to the public. And it's like, what recourse does the hospital have really? Like, they're not going to track down like Svetlana out in Bulgaria over this. Like, they're not going to do that. Right. The difference is like when we're pen testing, we're not usually like being super quiet, right? So because we're trying to give the customer the most bang for their buck, we're trying to show them sort of all these possible ways they could be compromised by someone maybe moving more slowly, sitting on their network for months and months and months.
Welcome to Smolder, the Professionals Applied AI podcast. I'm your host, James Wagenheim, and first I want to apologize to Smolder podcast fanatics. That's right, we don't have fans, we have fanatics, and here at the Smolder HQ, we've been inundated with letters, emails, text messages, DMs where fans have been asking, where the hell have you been? Well, our entire production team, which is quite vast, took a brief hiatus so that we could be present for the birth and first few weeks of my daughter Millie's life. So you might be wondering, how can you show your excitement and join the countless others that we consider our closest friends? Well, I have a great way for you to welcome her into the world. You can simply hit that subscribe button so you can hear all the latest developments in AI and watch me slowly disintegrate from lack of sleep with our guest live. Or you can just DM me your Bitcoin address and we can pay for her college. Well, enough chit chat. Let's get to today's guest because I'm really excited about this conversation. Today's guest is fantasy author, senior penetration tester, and project lead Alex Fox. Alex brings a unique set of perspectives on the AI landscape. Her lens includes experience as an author who writes fantasy and a cybersecurity expert that helps businesses and government agencies proactively protect their environment. This is one of my favorite conversations that I've had so far on the podcast because Alex has a clear and independent mind and is genuinely fun and interesting to talk to. If you like this conversation, please hit the like button, subscribe, or find us on Patreon. Without further ado, here is Alex Fox. Alex Fox, welcome to the Smolder podcast.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so this is really cool. This is my 10th episode, and my goal was to do at least 12. So this is like pretty much a milestone for me. Plus, you're the first woman to be on the cast, and I feel like it's been a long time coming. This is like, what the hell?
The best for 10.
Yeah, exactly.
As they say. Yeah.
They always say that.
They always say that. I'm happy to push you towards that 12th episode.
Yes, thank you. So this is going to be a little different than the ones that I've done in the past because I think you have like really two cool perspectives that are super unique. I think one, that you're a penetration tester, and the second one, it's obviously you're a writer and you have a new book that you're working on getting published. And do you want to say what the name of that is?
Well, it's called I Am the Blood, but it's not. So the problem with like writing, if you want to go traditionally published, it's like you have to get an agent first.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So you query agents, and then if you get an agent, which is like statistically probably like 1% of people who query agents will get an agent.
Yeah.
Then from there, the agents will try to sell your book to the publishers. So it's like these two, and they can reject them. Like, so even if you have an agent, the publisher can reject your book. So I don't have either of those yet. So I'm really just some schlub with an unpublished book.
You're a schlub with a book.
So
you have written a book.
Titles doesn't even matter. Yes, I did write a book. Thank you. I have published short stories, which like kind of gives me a little street cred, but yeah, book-wise, nothing you can find on shelves.
Well, what I think is really substantial about that is that regardless of whether or not you've gone through the steps of publishing, you've gone through the creative steps, the creative process of pulling together a substantial work that requires a lot of focus and energy. And so I think that is absolutely tremendous. And so congratulations on that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a big endeavor, definitely. And I learned a lot. So even if nothing comes out of it, like the intangible benefits come out of it just for the next one.
That's awesome. So I was actually going to talk about some of the pen testing stuff first. And I guess I'm just really curious I have a lot of my own assumptions about this as an engineer, but I'm curious, like, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen now that generative AI is on the scene? And then maybe also, like, might be good to just tell us a little bit about what pen testing really is and like sort of what the scope of where you focus is.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with the second part first.
Yeah.
So I work mostly in like the commercial space, which is like the non-federal government space. So it's like I work a lot with hospitals, universities, like state and like local governments, and then like companies and their software and stuff. And so the scope can like vary between all of those, right? But usually usually there's an external focus, which is like what we can hit from the internet. Like, can an attacker traverse the external bounds into the internal, or even sort of like, can they gain access to application, like public portals, applications, etc. And once they're in there, can they get further? Can they escalate privileges or get data from other users or something? And then internally, usually put us on their internal network where we can hit various subnets that host systems, usually Windows environments, right, primarily, but they'll have Linux systems on there. Sometimes we'll see Macs, not really.
Yeah.
And part of this will be like their Active Directory environment, right, which is like sort of like Windows, like how they organize like users and groups and sort of
permissions,
delegate permissions and privileges throughout the environment. And that's always usually in scope as well if we're internal. So yeah, it's a lot. A lot of it is targeted at, and then there's like application based testing as well. So if they have like this bespoke application, or if they're using an application like MyChart or something, a lot of like medical places use that. Like, we'll test their instance and we'll look at that and look at whatever software they want looked at, essentially. And this can range from just like looking for known and active vulnerabilities, or CVEs, that like could be running on some outdated software.
CVEs?
CVEs, yeah. So it's just like how I don't know what it stands for. It's probably like common vulnerability something. It's just like a it's how they categorize vulnerabilities, right? So it'll be like CVE dash like 2025 dash some like ID or something, and that will mean like a remote code execution vulnerability in VMware or something like that. So it's just sort of like a way to categorize them all. And then there's like the more sort of like, I don't want to say nuanced, but like more like focused on like user, like looking at Active Directory missions will be assigned a standard user in the environment. And these Active Directory domains can be like huge rat nests of like permission, like overflow and stuff like that. And so can we escalate from where we are to a domain administrator, or can we find someone who can be escalated and then get their account either through password spraying or network shares? We'll have like clear text credentials a bunch of times. So we'll try to use that to escalate. And then it's sort of the chaining attack vectors and possibilities through these inherited permissions to achieve higher privilege levels.
Sounds kind of fun.
It's really fun. Oh my God, I love it. The best job ever. Love it. Highly recommend. And it's especially fun. I mean, it's especially fun when they're bad at security.
Yeah.
Right? Because like then you get to do a bunch of stuff and be like, you get to have a very robust report. Right. Yeah, and you get to feel confident in your abilities. And then if they have really good security, very, very locked down. Usually, I mean, we always find stuff and we almost always escalate to domain admin. It's just a matter of the patience, right. Like that instant gratification. But sometimes it's better if you work for it, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the scope of that. And so like within that, I haven't seen a lot of AI. Like I haven't seen AI really in a lot of the customers or clients we've been testing. Like there is sort of discussion. I think we do have one customer who is discussing implementing their own like LLM, like within like their, I don't know if it's like a localized model or something, but they want us to look at that, but we haven't yet. So, but it is like ongoing, like everyone's chatting about it, right? So it's interesting because like I haven't like I have coworkers who have played around with like these sort of not like Well, yeah, it's like jailbreaking an LLM, right? It's
Right.
the same sort of like, that's basically what hacking an LLM would be. It just
Right.
depends on like what you're trying to jailbreak it to do. Some people do it to write like smutty novels, and like some people will do it to like see if they can traverse like the inward paths, so like hit other data, like data sources and what have you.
Is that how you
And
wrote your
so,
smutty novel?
yes, definitely, definitely. Jailbroken
Yep.
right in that shit. No, so yeah, so like I don't really have first-hand experience with like hacking them.
Well, yeah, I guess I was thinking more, so that's a really interesting angle. I was thinking more of like, it has the vulnerability landscape changed now that people that are trying to enter those walls have that capability. I mean, I guess it just, maybe it's more the same and they just have some easier access to getting these scripts and
So you're
migrating
I see
them.
what you're saying. Yeah, so
Have you guys changed strategies at all in terms of your evaluations?
not really. Like there's like I feel like if you're using, I mean, and this is a huge generalization, right?
Yeah.
Like there are obviously like nation states that are putting a lot of money and efforts in researching AI capabilities and like how that can be leveraged from an attacker's perspective and also from a defensive perspective. But like I would say the youths who are using generative AI to try to hack into things, like there's a like a colloquial term called, they're called script kiddies.
Yeah.
And they've always existed. They've always existed throughout hacking history.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like you pull a script. Oh, I want to get into this. You just hammer it with requests, like no rhyme or reason to it, trying to find the lowest hanging fruit. And like you might find something if you have a big enough net, right?
Yeah.
And so like I feel like they would be more likely
Enabled.
to use to use these like tools, but these tools have always kind of existed, right? To search GitHub or like vulnerability scanners are like huge, right? A lot of like pen test teams just rely on vulnerability scanners, and they're gonna give you a bad product, quite frankly. You want people who are doing the manual like inspection and like nuanced look at like the 300-foot view or whatever of the totality of the environment. So I don't think so I'm not too like, I don't think that's necessarily influencing that landscape.
That makes a lot of sense.
That looks different. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would expect the volume of attempts to increase as automation becomes more convenient. But it makes a lot of sense to me that sort of the types of attacks, setting AI aside, internal AI agents aside, seems like the types of attacks are going to stay relatively within the same scope. I guess, have you at all talked about some of the, I forget exactly what the term is, where they're hacking AI agents by sort of trying to hack the context?
Like with the,
I think it's called like prompt injection. Yeah, that's the term.
yeah, sure. Yeah. So that's right. So that would be right. So when I was talking about, right, like how just a layperson would maybe try to leverage AI for hacking. But yes, if you're trying to like hack the AI, right, it would be like prompt injection, which is like similar to jailbreaking. It's just, right, it's like, it's sort of just like breaking down. And I haven't done a lot of this, to be honest with you, but I've read a little bit about it, where it's just like breaking down the prompts into like smaller sections generally, or like sections that can be interpreted by the LLM differently. So it's like still within its parameters to answer, but by doing that, it sort of breaks out of the parameters it's set within, as far as I know. And so, so prompt injection would fall under that. And like, that's a huge, right. So it's like having sort of an unvetted and like in your environment is a huge risk because of that, right? Like it's like a sort of a direct way to interface with something that you presumably have there to deal with, like data, right? Like I feel like that's kind of like the biggest
value,
the best use case of LLMs, right? Like they can handle a lot of data well. So it's like, if you don't have it segmented off properly, or like, let's say all the data is just going into one database and you're relying on the LLM to just give you like, don't give other customer data, just give one. But like, obviously that can be circumvented, right? So it's sort of like this, like, I feel like that's a big security gap, is like developers who could implement LLMs in their environment with like these access to like very sensitive data that aren't properly hammered against enough before introducing them to sort of like the public or whoever's using this application, right? And then someone just inevitably hammering down at them until they can get whatever not it's guarding, but has access to, or it's like running at like high privileges in a code environment to like change code or push code or something like that, right? Like it's like, it's doubtful that, I mean, it's not necessarily doubtful, but like judging by like a lot of things we see, it's probably not going to be running in like least privilege scenario, right? So these are all things that should be thought of.
One of the things that came up recently, actually there's two thoughts I had, was there was some research done that the more context that a LLM has in trying to answer a prompt, the more susceptible it is to hallucinations, and also to not following its original sort of parameters. So it can go.
Oh, interesting.
Using it as a way of sort of.
So you can like confuse it. Yeah.
So if you have just irrelevant large amounts of context and then you get it to do something that is outside of its directive, then it does seem like, it stops listening. Exactly.
That's interesting. No, I read about, like, I literally just the other day read about how you can jailbreak LLMs with like poetry, right? Because it's like using verse, it's like using like strange verse basically to sort of get around what it's expecting. And then by doing so, you kind of can manipulate it.
Getting into a different space.
Yeah, exactly. I thought is like, I feel like that's really interesting.
So cool.
It's really cool because it like makes me almost more intrigued by how they work, right? Because I don't use them a lot, and I haven't been super impressed when I have used them for certain things, but it's like that makes it more interesting to me, is just to see how they can get out of those contexts.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast this morning on Mindscape, which is one I often listen to. It's like a physics podcast. They had an AI history guest on today, Anil, and I don't remember his last name, but I'll put it in the notes. But he was just talking about some of the earliest neural networks that were designed back in the 50s that were basically like, you had maybe a 10 by 10 grid of pixels and was just trying to decide whether it was 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 9, and basically build a basic classifier. And if you take, and I'm probably not going to represent this right, but this is basically the way I digested it. But if you took that individual number, that 10 by 10 pixel grid, and you put it into, considered it like, what is that? 10 by 10 is 100 dimensional space. I can do math.
No, I just put out my fingers like that.
Yeah.
Like, how many is? Yeah.
So it would be like, rather than it being this 2-dimensional grid, it's a 100-dimensional space. And if you think about that times 9, each one of those is like more or less a vector in a 100-dimensional space. And so if you come up with a set of pixels, it basically would it had an algorithm to see how close you were in that dimensional space to almost like a nearest neighbor. So if you're like in this cluster, you're probably a 9, or you know what I mean? So I thought that was super cool, but it made me think about these large language models that have, frankly, trillions of parameters, some of the bigger models. It's a trillion parameter surface, basically. And there's no way to visualize that except for drawing down into much smaller dimensions. But that was the first time I was like, oh, I actually can kind of visualize how this searching sort of happens. And that's a very simple version, but I love the idea of poetry sort of maybe even getting you into a different space.
Right. Yeah,
that's my own metaphor. But
yeah, no, that's cool.
It also reminds me of early days, and this probably still very much exists in pentest. You tell me if that's true. But with PHP, which sort of started a lot of people into software development and web development in particular. And they coupled that with MySQL or some other database. But SQL injection was like a real problem.
Oh, yeah. Still find it.
Yeah. And so, well, and what I guess scripting injection too, you just finding a way to like close the whatever operation so that they could actually run a script that it posted as part of a form. And that was so common because when that capability came out, we just didn't know the holes. And I feel like it's really similar. I don't know if you would agree when it comes to AI that we sort of are in that phase right now.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, right. Because then it's like, because to deal with SQL injection, it's like you need like parameterized queries, right? So it's like the user can't break out of that.
Right.
Or the user input can't break out of the expectation, right? And so, yeah, I feel like, well, it makes me wonder, it's like, I don't even know how they do it with LLMs to begin with, right? Yeah. Like, is it just, because it's not as simple as just closing I wouldn't think it's as simple as closing a looper or putting quotes there or something so that you can't break out of the quotes. Like, I feel like because of the nature of the LLM, you're interacting with it and it's taking, I don't know. I feel like
it's a really good point.
I don't know how. I would want to I don't know. I kind of want, I don't really want to do this because it sounds like a lot of work, but to understand better how these like LLMs really work. Like, I love to see just like how they're able to like implement these things that constantly get jailbroken out of, right? Like, that's the thing, is like they are constantly, it's like they figure out one thing and then there's another thing that pops up and they figure out one thing and then there's another thing that circumvents it or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting because it can't be that simple to fix.
No,
right?
No, it doesn't sound like it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you see like the Elon Musk flubs when they started trying to make their model a little bit more right wing, and then all of a sudden it's like saying it's Hitler and stuff. And the manipulations of system prompts are not super effective when it's sort of trained on all of the internet's data. It's almost sort of like a really massive instruction book that's already sort of overriding the system prompts directive. I also sort of thought of, I don't know if you saw the Reddit post where someone had gone in and figured out that Apple had stored in their registry files all the plain text prompts that they...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like you just realize these guys are doing it like any high schooler would manage their...
I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, they're just like, make it sound professional and be business-like. It's the same stuff that you do when you're trying to get it to get the answer that you want. So it was kind of funny.
It's very funny. Human element.
Yeah, so actually, I've been excited to talk to you because I had a little bit of experience sort of diagnosing a hack that took place back when I used to work for a company called Radio Systems. And maybe I told you about this one, but basically we had acquired this company. They were sitting on an old server and we were sort of waiting to bring the brand in, and their server software was maybe a little bit out of date and we hadn't really had the time or investment to put into maintaining it. Anyway, there was a Linux vulnerability and it got hacked and several thousand credit cards were stolen. What I found was really interesting about that, and I'm curious what you see today, was when we talked to the FBI, they sort of mentioned that they had these like hacking houses basically, and most of the traffic was coming from Russia, and they would basically post vulnerabilities onto a website, and then multiple people with like different skill sets would go and attack the site in different ways, whether it be spamming or stealing credit cards so I'm just kind of curious, like, what's the landscape of things that you see, and like sort of what are some of the personas that are doing this kind of attacks?
Well, so I don't specifically work like in the blue team area, which is like more of the defenses who would know, like be aware of that stuff, right? They would bring our blue team guys on to sort of diagnose that and analyze
Oh,
that.
and sort of like would a blue team be your,
or like the post, what is it, like post something analyst? I don't know.
yeah,
They
almost
analyze
your
like some stuff
forensic,
after an attack.
like your forensic team.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Right. But I do know, like, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of like overseas people, like varying from, larger state run stuff. Like they're probably attacking the more our, like they would be looking more at like our like infrastructure grids, like power plants, wastewater treatment facilities. Like we go in and test those physically, like SCADA systems a lot.
Oh, wow.
Because they're like a high risk, because it's like if that goes down, I mean, chaos, right?
Well,
So
my assumption was just like, and maybe this isn't the case. Maybe the wastewater has got the worst security of any, but maybe that's not the truth. That's not the case. Like, when I go to this state website, I'm like, this is terrible, but maybe they're doing a better job.
Built-in defense. It has its own built-in defense system with like how bad it smells. But yeah, no, I mean, I feel like whenever I've gone, it's been pretty, I don't want to say like locked down, but like you can't traverse it that well. And it's also just to like look at their like on-site like SCADA systems and like make sure there's no like overt ways to take over them.
Yeah.
But for other things like hospital ransomware, that type of stuff, I mean, that can be done by anyone basically. So I don't really know like the origins of like, it sounds like what you're describing is almost like a bug bounty program, but like for hackers, like real hackers, not just like reporting out of goodwill, right? They're hacking, like they might get paid a little bit,
right,
if they're successful, and then whoever's sort of using them gets to ransom the hospital records for Bitcoin or something, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't really know much about like who the actual like threat actors are, but it could be anyone. Really.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, is like hacking is so like, and if you're in another country, you're not going to get like persecuted for it, right? Like you can just kind of like see what you can pull. Hey, I just hacked into Indiana hospital and have all their records now, and they have to pay me a Bitcoins, or I'm going to release it to the public. And it's like, what recourse does the hospital have really? Like they're not going to track down like Svetlana out in Bulgaria over this. Like they're not going to do that.
Right.
So it makes it tough to avoid, but like that's why you just have to be on the ball about like what's exposed to the internet.
Yeah.
Do I have like this like production system that's running a highly valued SQL server, or like can my employees be phished and impersonated, and then we don't have MFA? Like that type of stuff is really the forefront of making sure these sort of like opportunistic, those are more opportunistic hacks. Your situation sounds like it was that as well. Like I'm sure they saw your stuff was running like some vulnerable thing that they knew they could easily exploit.
Exactly.
So that's sort of how that
arises. It was sort of interesting. It reminded me a lot of what you were saying about elevating privileges, because basically what they did was they first posted online, and the only reason I know so much about this is we did the forensics first, and it, like,
cool.
We were sort of shocked that the FBI wouldn't even open a case because we had so few credit cards. They were like, well, we don't really do anything unless it's 1 million credit cards or more. And then the credit card companies at the time, I think this has changed, but they were like, we're not going to even notify you. If you want to notify them, you can. Otherwise, we're just going to monitor these accounts for fraud. But which we did notify people. It's really wild, but it showed me at the time the volume of attacks that are happening. But going back to what you were saying earlier, so they found and published a vulnerability in PHP, which then they were able to exploit to get an account on the Linux box. From there, they were able to basically elevate their privileges to root. And we sort of saw attacks all the way down the line, from simple like ones that were spamming email and stuff like that. So, but yeah, like what are some of the like modern like ways that people are elevating their access when they're once they've got into internally, like what are some of the ways they do that?
Okay. So once you're internal, like if you're on an internal network with like get a user account that you compromised.
Yeah.
You would generally, and so this kind of like also, I'm going to speak in like penetration testing terms, but there's also like red teaming, which is like red teaming is like someone who's like on a network, like would do that attack, right? But then like try not to get caught and try to escalate organically or whatever their goal was for the engagement, try to achieve that goal. And the difference is like when we're pen testing, we're not usually like being super quiet, right? So because we're trying to give the customer the most bang for their buck, we're trying to show them sort of all these possible ways they could be compromised by someone maybe moving more slowly, sitting on their network for months and months and months. I just want to make that distinction. But
I didn't actually realize they were two separate sort of categories. So red teaming is like really trying to get in there. Pen testing is landscape of vulnerabilities kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it's more, I feel like red teaming is more like, red teaming is what you'd want to use if you wanted to test like your detections and your defenses and see if you could detect sort of like anomalous movement on your network. Pen testing is more like, we're going to be on your network. We're going to be kicking up a lot of traffic. You probably won't see all of it, honestly, because a lot of people don't have really great like fine-tuned detections, or it just gets lost in all of the other detections.
Yeah.
They don't really know what they're looking for. So we'll kick up traffic. We might start out slower so we don't kick up a lot of traffic, and then we'll gradually get louder and louder. But we want to give you the most bang for your buck. So instead of just like sneaking through slowly, like one person sneaking through slowly, we'll be running a bunch of things. We'll be like looking for, like we'll be scanning your environment. We'll be trying to report on basically everything we can find that poses risk to your organization, and not everything. Like
what you can
use our judgment on what we report as well. Like we're not going to be reporting like some bullshit like little things that can't be exploited. Like we might make a mention of it, but
sure,
you know what I mean. So yeah, it's like we hit them hard and fast, and they reap the benefits. And so it's usually like we'll usually recommend, most places, at least the commercial space, want a pen test because they don't even have sophisticated security controls that would make a red team engagement beneficial.
Valuable.
Right. Yeah. So and then it's like eventually you'll work with customers for years and years, and they'll get their security up to snuff, and then we'll be like, okay, like let's try a red team engagement. Red teaming is also more expensive because like you have to engineer EDR bypasses. EDR is like endpoint detection response, right? So it'll block malicious binaries, it'll block a lot of the tools we run. So we'll have to engineer that, and it just is more time consuming and costly. But anyways, I forget. Oh, so your question was like if someone was on the network.
Yeah, what are some of the ways that they elevate their permissions?
Elevate the permissions. So what we usually do is like we'll run this tool called SharpHound, which will make a bunch of LDAP queries to the domain controller, and it will find all of the Active Directory domain information. And from there, it will give us graphical output through this tool called Bloodhound, SharpHound and Bloodhound. And then on Bloodhound, we can actually see through a graphical interface, like
all the connections.
This user can get to, has like, it belongs to this group. This group has generic rights over this group. This group can DC sync, which is dump all the hashes of the domain. We literally just did an engagement where users in the everyone group, so literally everyone in this group, had control over, had generic all rights over this one like random account that also had the ability to change the password of another account. And that account could dump all the hashes of the domain, which is like dump all the hashes, then we crack them offline and get the passwords, right? So it was like
all the hashes of the domain is basically the encrypted version of the passwords, right?
Right, of everyone's password, right? So we basically had compromised the entire environment just because they had this like weird setup,
right?
And it was like a cool finding, and it was really cool, but it wasn't super hard to take advantage of. But like we were looking for those things. So that's one way we could do it.
It's amazing. I feel like the conversation was 5-10 years ago that all those passwords were stored in plain text. So They're at least they're at least hashes.
Yeah, well, they're hashed, right? They're NTL hashes, so they're not super hard to crack. Like depending, well, and we don't crack them all, right? Like if you have a complex enough password, we won't crack it.
Yeah.
But even with just the hashes, on most environments, you can use those hashes just as a like you can use that and authenticate as that user across the environment.
Using the hash.
Just using the hash. So you don't even need to crack it most of the time. We have, like now they're getting better at that, and they're disabling that sort of like pass the hash technique by enforcing Kerberos, which is a whole other thing that I don't even really understand, honestly. But like you get tickets that have embedded hashes. I don't really.
Yeah.
I know how to play with it. I don't really like understand the fun.
I remember whenever we were doing the computer science class and they were discussing like how you have an encrypted, how you basically safely transport encryption. And like, I was like, I don't understand what the hell you just said.
Yeah.
Like, I just really don't understand.
It's really tough. I mean, it is like really.
I'm like, the train has the key. I don't get it. Like, there's something about trains and keys. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. For working in a technical field, I'm like not even a super technical person. So like this stuff, like it really bamboozles me. It's exposure therapy. But like another way you could escalate your privileges is like there are these things called Active Directory certificates. And they're like, maybe I shouldn't talk about this because I don't even really understand how they work. But they just like exist within an environment, and they enroll certain rights to things, to groups, and a lot of them, it's sort of this like newer attack path that's come about in the last like 3 or 4 years. But you can basically, a lot of them are misconfigured so that like you yourself can request a certificate for someone else, and through that use their ticket to then like if the elevate your privileges and then dump hashes that way. So those are 2 ways. Again, they're really Windows focused because that's kind of, we're almost always on like Windows based networks internally. But
well, when I worked for IDEX, all the passwords were IDEX 123. How cool is it to just have the passwords be, you like look at the hashes and they're all like the same or something? I don't know.
They're all the same, or like, like and we'll password spray too sometimes, like before, if we're not able to escalate or haven't yet. And you'd be surprised how many people have like welcome 123 bang, right? Like, or something like that. Like, and it's still very common.
Well, I did when I was really young. I was like, tried my hand at hacking. Luckily, I was under 18, so I don't think the authorities can get me now. But I basically built like a freaker that went out and just randomly dialed phone numbers and would log bulletin boards to a log. And I was like really stupid. I like printed them all out. And so I had like files, and then I would go and just see if I could get in. And
dude, you should, it might be your calling.
It might be my calling.
Get back into it.
It was shocking, like how many of the passwords were literally just on the screen somewhere.
Totally.
You're just like, you read the screen and you're like, somewhere on here is the password. You just try that and you would get in just 9 times out of 10. And I know like people want to be better about that, but they're just not good at that stuff. Passwords are a really tough thing.
It's like the human element is like always like the weakest link in any like security environment, I feel like. And like that's like a great example. I used to hack on Neopets, like it's like 11 because like like on Neopets, like you'd get more street cred if you had like a cool account name, like a simple noun.
Wait, what's Neopets?
Neopets.
Oh, Neopets.
Were you not familiar?
I have no idea.
It's like an online game where you own pets, but it's so much more than that because like they had a stock market, they had these games, they had forums.
Should we play this game? It sounds amazing.
It still exists. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Google it after this. Neopets. You can check it out.
Cool.
But yeah, I would just try like password, but I'd hack into random people's accounts and then I would take their account for myself. So
I'm going to visit you in jail. I would love for you to go to jail because you hacked Neopets, someone's digital account or digital toys.
Their pets.
Well, this sort of like leads me to the next thing, which is LLMs are sort of like a massive search tool. They're just really good at, like you said, processing data. And I can imagine doing things like figuring out passwords might be made easier. But what are some of the, if you're looking ahead at sort of your job and the types of threats that you're trying to help customers face, are there things in 5-10 years that will be on the landscape that you think might extend the scope?
I mean, I think it would just like depend how, do you mean like in terms of like AI and stuff?
Yeah, just the fact that like right now they're already pretty good at sort of finding little random pieces of information. For example, if you had just a massive amount of things that someone wrote over a time, it would be really easy to be like, hey, find me the password, just like in natural language.
Yeah.
There might be other ways to leverage it that I haven't really thought of, but are there some that you're just sort of like looking ahead at, or maybe not?
I mean, not really personally, but that does sound like a use case for it, right? Is like building, like if you're trying to, maybe like you're building a target list of people to fish or something, right? Like using to aggregate all the data on the internet about like John Smith from Montana. Like you'd have to give it more specifics so it doesn't pick all of them. But that, I feel like that's an interesting idea.
We're brainstorming right now.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think like it would have to like have access to like a bunch of things on the back end too. Like, I don't know, probably like Facebook or stuff like that. But I don't know if it could do it any better than me today. Right now. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't know if, like, I'm not saying I'm great at it, but like I'm anyone really. Like, I don't know if that would be the best. Like, I feel like in my industry, I feel like AI could be the most beneficial for like reading through a lot of documentation. Like if you have like a lot of documentation, like Confluence or Obsidian or Joplin, stuff like that, like just like a huge repository of like notes and like past ops and like stuff like that, and just sort of like a localized LLM that's just sort of trained on your data. And you could also give it like links to tools that you use, right? And it can read all the man pages, and it will know all the commands, all the flags, stuff like that. And sort of like giving it all this like knowledge base so that you can ask it like, hey, like I'm going to be performing a certificate attack. Like what are the commands I run, right? Like, because there's, you use so many, I mean, we kind of use like similar ones every time, but there's always new ones popping up, and like we probably forget old ones, and it's just like the nature of knowledge. And I think just to have sort of an internal search database, essentially, that would be helpful. And I think there are people like on my team, I think, who are sort of researching that stuff. And I know people in other positions, like jobs, like someone who works in insurance claims or something like that, who they have like their own LLM that sort of like is able to read through all this like these tomes of documentation, and it just like makes it a lot faster. So I feel like that sort of is the sort of as a little like assistant, right? Yeah. For sifting through all that is how I see it benefiting my industry the most, perhaps. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are looking into it for like an attacker's perspective or something like that. Like it as, but I just don't think. I mean, I don't think I feel like that's way down the line. Yeah. It's not really expanding the scope that much. Yeah. You'd never like let that loose on the environment right now. So, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Well, last question before we switch gears, because I want to talk about writing some more. Is there folks that are using it for helping them write scripting, kind of like developers, that sort of thing? So like, are you guys using IDEs? And are they using Copilot or Cursor or anything like that? I think people have been looking at Claude a lot. Is that in one of those? I'm not really familiar. Yeah, people have been using Claude, I think, to mostly write like little scripts here and there. Nothing huge, but it does like save a lot of time. Yeah, for those things. And I've been meaning to sort of look into that myself, because I don't really like writing scripts myself, so neither do I. Claude will do it for me. Like that would be great. Yeah. So switch gears for a moment. I want to talk more about writing, and also I'm just generally curious how generative AI strikes you as someone who is excited about writing in a creative space. Like,
is it super scary? Do you find it like absurd? Like what, or is it really exciting? Like where do you land on that?
I don't like it. I don't think, I mean, people have a lot of doomsday scenarios about how it will replace creatives and stuff. And I just don't think that's going to happen either. Like, I mean, maybe, I don't think it's at a capacity where it can write like well at all. Like in a creative sense, right? Writing a book that I doesn't want to read. Like it can write an email, I guess, but even those emails, I'm like, why didn't you just write this yourself? Like it would be a better email probably. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, there is like, rightly so, like huge pushback in the creative spaces because it's been trained on all these books, like completely ignoring copyright laws, like creatives in general, like writers and like artists too, I'm sure, like they get paid like pennies to begin with, right? Like there are like 95% of everyone who writes books like will never ever earn a living on it, right? Like you can only write if you like have a job or you have a spouse that supports you, or you work like me jobs. So yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Still working on that.
Wife. Yeah, but it's tough, right? It's like, so it's really tough to be a working creative, and then it's like, okay, these like rich guys just get to train their tech on all this stuff, and like they're not held accountable for it. Like, and it's like, what, they're just allowed to break the law because why? It's a new technology. So it's like sort of this, like at the core of it, it's like a upsetting idea, right? And then it's like not even like it's going to write the books it ingested. It's going to write like these poor carbon, like not even carbon copies. It's writing these like poor, like shells of what it's ingested, really. So, and you see that with like the art too. And I feel like, and the reason why I don't think it's a doomsday scenario anymore, I mean, maybe in 100 years, they will take the writer's jobs. Like, I don't know. I'm going to be dead by then. So sorry.
Not me.
Now you'll have the AI heart. Yeah. AI droid exoskeleton.
I'll have a very boring, not creative half of my brain and then a really creative side. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
I guess I don't know. We'll see which one's going to be the AI side, but go ahead.
And you'll be able to like look at a lot of documentation.
Very fast.
Really very fast. The fastest. Like you saw with like when Midjourney got super popular, like I'm sure you remember when like that was just like a thing. Everyone was like, look at this art I'm creating. And then it was like, oh, it's like all kind of looks really bad. Or just like uninspired, right? No real vision defining it. It's just right, because it's just this like amalgamation of like it's all of its inputs and it's trying to do like an estimation of like what you want. And now it's like people are like hiring artists requesting specifically like, please don't make it look like AI, right? And these are just like anecdotes that I've heard.
Well,
right?
I love the idea of like it's sort of estimating art. You're like, oh, well, that's approximately art.
Yeah, you're right. Like, that's a house by a river. And some people will be like, wow, this is beautiful, but it's like, no, it's just a fucking, but it's crazy because it's like, and since we're on this, I'm just going to bring it up.
Yeah, please.
You know, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So A Feast for Crows is the fourth book in Game of Thrones. And I think it just had its like 10th anniversary edition published, and it gets published with art, right? So it gets published, and there's like all these like Twitter threads that are like, dude, like there's AI art in this A Feast for Crows book. And if you look up at the artwork, it's like blatantly AI art. Now they did hire a guy to do it, and he put out some like bullshit statement, and so did they, right? So did Penguin Random House. But like anyone who's like been around AI art can tell, like if it wasn't like
the signals
necessarily, not necessarily like he didn't edit it or he didn't have its own starting thing, but it was like AI is involved somehow,
right? And
they're just telling everyone like, no, like we would never hire someone who uses AI in their art. And then the artist is like, no, like I'm not using AI. Like
very
look at
clear
this process.
Yeah,
and it's like, dude, like you are lying to us.
Yeah.
It's so like, that's the most infuriating part is like, don't lie about it. Like,
well, we're really not going to have great ways to tell. I mean, but I agree that like,
well, that's the thing. It's frustrating.
It's frustrating.
You know?
Well, and I was talking to my brother-in-law last week, who is a filmmaker, and he was just talking about, I think it's a really good point. We've evolved our ability to recognize better quality over time. So if you look back at when we were watching tube TVs or standard definition, you try to watch it now, and it's like so hard to watch.
Yeah.
But I think
so hard to play Zelda Ocarina of Time now,
which I still love that game.
Which I love. I do too. I love, and I'm like, oh, these graphics.
They're really bad, but they seemed amazing at the time.
I know. Like I got lost in that world, but totally, I feel what you're saying.
Well, he was just saying that. Then I think is a really good point that as AI evolves, we're going to get really good at finding these cues, and that's just going to continue to follow along with the AI. We're still going to be able to tell, like, kind of CGI. Sometimes it looks too real, like
right,
or it looks like Uncanny water doesn't look real. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I want to always be able to, I hope I can always tell, and then can't tell. Then it's like a more of a quandary.
Well, it's a quandary too, because now that it's out there, you don't really know. There's not actually a predictive tool that can tell you with certainty. And it's going to have, that is going to be frustrating. I agree. I guess, did you have, like, how long did it sort of take you to get to the point where you're like, well, actually, I feel like this is not great for writing? Was it initially when 3.5 came out, or has it evolved?
Like I just like never, well, I never really, I think I had like the free ChatGPT version for like a few days, right? And I would like ask it something because people were using it for work. And so like I would use it for work a little bit, and then I'd be like, okay, I guess this is like cool. And then I would like, it's like, I was like, I don't really know what everyone's talking about here. And then I would try to, and I never like really did anything like creative with it, but like even just like asking questions and stuff, I was just like, this is just another thing to do. It's not like it's not like it would never replace anything in a creative process for me, because like, I mean, the problem with ChatGPT, like I'm using that
as a bucket
name for Gen AI, right?
Yeah.
Is like, if you remove the process from yourself, like you're not going to be able to do it yourself, right? And like the process is the thing. It's not the book, it's the process. And like, so you could have chat or AI write you a book. It's going to be bad. And then like, what, are you going to edit it yourself? But like, what are you even editing? Like, or are you just okay with it being bad? And then do you just want to like self-publish your bad book amongst a sea of other bad books? I mean, there are really good self-published books out there. I'm not talking about those. I'm just talking about like, if people,
there are also a lot of bad ones.
Yeah, and like people are using AI to like just like publish things on like Kindle Unlimited and stuff like that, and like it's just content, right? So that's why it never like, I was just like, I don't really see how this is going to help me. Like, I like the brainstorming part. I mean, it gets really frustrating sometimes, but then you just talk it over with someone, and usually you get insight. And like plotting and like the writing especially, I mean, it's like I said, like writing is such a thankless profession, and like you don't want to do it if you're not going to make, like, just assume you're not going to make money, right? Yeah. So it's like, why do it unless you don't like to write? So to me, it's just like that's the fun part.
Such a good.
So I can't really, and I mean, I think I listened to an episode where you were talking about this too. And you were likening AI to, or like how it like erodes parts of your brain to GP. And like, that's the exact same analogy I would use. Is like, I mean, and you can just, I mean, I again, not that I have a lot of experience using it, but like, even with things like, if I'm watching too many short form videos, right, my attention span just like erodes considerably, right? And so, I mean, same thing with GPS. Like, I've lived here for a while now.
I don't know where I am in Scarborough. Yeah, I'm not even sure I am in Scarborough.
Like in Portland, I'm like, I think I have to go this way. It's like the smallest city ever. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure I have to go this way. Let me just check, right? Yeah. And so, like, I've experienced that in real time, and like also with like functions at work, right? Like, if I don't do something for so long, it just is in one ear out the other, and then you kind of have to relearn everything. And like, I don't need any help in eroding my brain. Like I'm doing a good job of that myself already. And as I get older, it's like you want to challenge yourself more. You want to like lean into the uncomfortable.
Right.
Not saying I'm great at doing that either, but so I think I'm just like aware of that. And I am sort of like, I do wonder why, I do question like why I'm okay with using it occasionally at work and why I'm not okay using it with creative stuff. And I think it's like, it's like, it is sort of it would be a black mark on anyone to use it. Cause it's like when you're using AI in any part of your process, like how can you trust that you're not using it in larger parts of your process, right?
Yeah. And people are like, well, I could just ask ChatGPT this question or have it expound on it. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I love the idea that it's just another thing to do. It really is.
Well, because it is, because it's like it's learning. You have to learn how to interact with it. You have to learn how to like ask it questions to give you what you want. And you're like, in the time I've done this, I probably could have read the Wikipedia article, right? Or whatever. So,
well, it makes me think of this New York Times article, and I look up the name of the author, but he basically spent, I think, like 6 or 8 weeks trying to live without AI, and he found it like nearly impossible. Basically, he had to become Amish.
Wow.
So I'm just curious, like, you don't seem like a purist to me. I mean, obviously you're using it for work in certain contexts, like even tools like Grammarly or things like that. Like, yeah. So like, what are the ways that you stick to your guns, and like, what's your process look like?
It's not even like, I don't even feel like I'm sticking to my guns. It just like doesn't appeal to me. I mean, like, and I never used, like it just, I'm just like, I don't really have an interest in this, so I'm not going to use it. Maybe I'm just getting older and I'm more.
You're so old.
Yeah. I'm just old man who yells at the clouds. I'm a Luddite. No, but it's like, like it genuinely doesn't really appeal to me. And Grammarly, like, no, like, I don't want my I don't want like something like commenting on my writing, or like I have good enough grammar that I trust my grammar. And if an editor wants to point something out down the line, fine. But like I went to a good school where that was forced on me. So I'm lucky. So I'm just going to rely on that.
That's so
cool. Also like so much of it is like so much of prose and like your voice is like how you construct sentences and knowing when to break the rules, right? And so like that is like lost when you put it through any sort of Grammarly or have AI edited or something like that. Like all of that would be eroded and homogeneized. And like that's, I think, like that's my least favorite part of AI in general, is like it is this sort of like
averaging,
homogenized, average, exactly, which like just doesn't work with creative output, in my opinion. Right, if you want the best output.
Well, and it just strikes me, this happened really early on. I think when there was a lot of competition between OpenAI got a big lead in the beginning, and then Microsoft and Google were racing to cram it down people's throats and get active users. So you couldn't really, and I think the same is true today, it's really hard to not use it.
Right.
They're big into search. They're adding.
I mean, I definitely, when I Google
words, like, so it's they are making it really annoying to not use. And I wonder if there's going to be in a variety of products that are more or less certified, being like, we have no AI in this thing. And I think there's a real market for that, because I too appreciate being free of the constant push to use the next thing, because I, like you, like the process of being creative. And that means a lot of different things, like building things or whatever. So I totally understand where you're coming from. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you see it also in like writer, like contracts, right? Like writing contracts, like a lot of places are being sort of pressured by writers to enforce like a no AI clause, meaning like they won't use associated AI art with your story or book, or it won't be fed to it if they lat.
Right.
And then there's also like kind of going back to the security aspect. It's like well, if I have all these AI tools in my writing stuff, like, are they just training on them? Like, am I just like adding to the pile of slop? And like, my stuff isn't slop. Like, don't slopify it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I definitely, and I do think like there is sort of obviously there was a lot of hype and like, and enthusiasm, and these products were, specifically speaking about like Gen AI stuff, like had so many investments, like, right, like so much money riding on it. And now, and I feel like pushing it into everything now is sort of a way, is because their user base is falling inevitably, right? And they're super costly to run. Like, we haven't even really touched on like the resources like needed for all these things, which is another like sort of ethical and moral quandary for me. So they're trying to recoup their investment, and people are kind of getting fed up with that as well. So,
well, they're deploying tactics that made the internet kind of suck with the last iteration of the big shift, the sort of engaging in the attention markets. But speaking of the environment, I was just sort of, I put a new battery in my laptop, and I have a really old laptop, and not because I want to save the planet. It's just because I can't afford a new one right now. So I have putting a new battery in my laptop, and part of the way of calibrating the laptop or the battery was to drain the battery down to 0, and then you fully charge it. And so I just put it on a YouTube video that was 10 hours of this fireplace, which I actually really like. But I was like, someone is going to just ask a large language model, a generative model, make me a fire, and so I can enjoy it. And rather than it playing a video, it's going to be generating this fire, and you're going to be sitting in front of it. And some GPUs, like some cluster of GPUs, are going to be just fucking ripping through power just so we can make this very inefficient version of something that exists 1,000 times over. So, or you could actually have in your home. So it is kind of, that was sort of a moment where I was like, wow, we really are going to have to ship these things to space, because it's going to be really not good for our planet to continue building at this rate.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like when you think about like 10, like 50, like when you're like, oh, but think about the capabilities like 50 years down the line. Well, it's like, well, what does the world look like in relation to that, right? Like, is all of America just data centers, like to support like these crazy like advancements in its abilities? Like, I don't know.
To read Reddit faster.
Like, it's just, it's crazy to think about.
It's a little crazy.
And it's scary because it's like so money, it's just backed like so across the board, I feel like.
Well, and I think going back to your sort of very early point, which is they have shown no regard for law when it comes to hoovering up this material. And if you are using Google Drive or Microsoft, it's really hard to believe that they're sandboxing that stuff away from those tools.
True.
They don't even, they're such big organizations, they don't even know when they're violating their own policies sometimes across departments necessarily. So, I also feel like we don't have a great environment to enforce laws when it comes to something that has promise for growth.
Or has money in it, right?
It's really hard.
Promise of money.
Yeah. I can imagine it's hard to like know that you've built something that you really value and put a lot of your own time in. There's not really great safeguards for it.
Yeah.
So I guess you seem like a pretty chill person. How do you get by?
I consider myself that, yes.
Well,
how do I get by?
Yeah.
Like, just in general?
You just don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I vaguely worry about it. I think I was more worried initially because I was like, oh, just as I finish my book.
Yeah. No, you finished it at the right time.
Yeah. Well, and then I was like, oh, I can't really write a paragraph, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, the fears were overblown. But yeah, I mean, down the line, I think it's going to be bad, but like, or pose an issue. But I also don't think you can really replace the human element of like quality innovation, which exists in creative spaces as well, right? Like, and in your own voice that can't be duplicated. And I don't think an LLM is ever going to learn how to use a voice. Like I just think it goes against sort of like how it's built.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't really stress about it. Like, I know, like, quite frankly, like, it's already so hard in general to get anything published, to make a career. Like, what's another thing? Right. I mean, like, I don't really worry about my creative future much because I just don't bank on it ever happening. So it makes it more enjoyable to do, honestly. So.
Well, I'm banking on it happening, and I 100% agree that the human voice is something super valuable, and I think something that humans really enjoy, and I don't think a computer is going to replace the fact that we enjoy that.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Well, Alex Fox, this has been an amazing time. Thank you for joining the Smolder podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I was so nervous, but it was fun.